The lights dimmed, the crowd whispered, and even Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair with that familiar skeptical half-smile, but what happened next would leave him completely speechless. Before we begin, stay with this story until the very end, because the final moment isn't just shocking, it's unforgettable. And if you believe in impossible dreams, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. You won't want to miss stories like this. It was a humid afternoon in a small coastal town in the Philippines when 13-year-old Matteo Santos stood barefoot outside his family's tiny wooden house, singing to the ocean as if it were his audience. His voice wasn't polished. It wasn't trained. But it carried something powerful, soul. His father, a fisherman who spent nights battling rough waves, would often sit quietly nearby, eyes closed, listening to his son sing songs from an old, crackling radio. That radio had once belonged to Matteo's grandfather, and through it, Matteo first heard the voice that would change his life, Elvis Presley. From the first time he heard "Can't Help Falling in Love," Matteo felt something stir in his chest. He didn't understand the English lyrics completely, but he understood emotion. He understood longing. He understood heart. He would mimic Elvis's voice for hours, practicing the deep vibrato, the gentle tremble, the powerful crescendos. The neighbors would laugh kindly at first. "Little Elvis," they'd call him. But as the years passed, the laughter turned into stunned silence whenever he sang. Life wasn't easy for Matteo's family. Some nights, there was barely enough rice for dinner. His mother washed clothes for neighbors to earn extra money. School wasn't always consistent. But music was constant. It was the one thing that made hunger quieter and dreams louder. One evening, a local teacher recorded Matteo singing at a small-town festival. The video was simple, no microphone, no stage, just Matteo under a string of flickering lights singing an Elvis classic with his eyes closed. The teacher uploaded it online, not expecting much. Within weeks, the video had crossed oceans. Comments poured in from the United States. "He sounds like Elvis reborn. This kid needs to be on a big stage." And then came the message that felt like a miracle, an invitation to audition for America's Got Talent. The day Matteo told his parents, his mother cried. Not tears of fear, but tears of hope. They had never traveled outside their province, let alone outside the country. The community came together, raising money for plane tickets. Fishermen donated a day's earnings. Neighbors sold homemade food. It wasn't just Matteo's dream anymore, it was everyone's. When Matteo arrived in Los Angeles, everything felt overwhelming. The buildings were taller than anything he had ever seen. The streets buzzed with noise. Inside the AGT theater, he felt smaller than ever. Backstage, other contestants warmed up: opera singers, dancers, magicians. Some had professional coaches and sparkling outfits. Matteo wore a simple white shirt, black trousers, and borrowed dress shoes slightly too big for his feet. His hair was neatly combed back, just like Elvis. As he stepped onto the massive stage of America's Got Talent, the spotlight blinded him for a second. The audience murmured. From the judges' panel, Simon studied him carefully. Next to him sat Sofia Vergara, smiling warmly, and Heidi Klum, leaning forward with curiosity. Matteo's heart pounded so loudly he thought the microphone might pick it up. Simon raised an eyebrow. "What are you going to sing for us today?" Matteo swallowed. "An Elvis Presley song, sir." A few audience members exchanged doubtful glances. "Elvis? Again?" Simon had heard countless impersonators before. He gave a polite nod. "All right. Let's hear it." The music began softly, the familiar intro to "Can't Help Falling in Love." For a split second, Matteo's nerves threatened to steal his voice. He thought of his father on the ocean. He thought of his mother's tired hands. He thought of the entire village watching from thousands of miles away. And then he sang. The first note floated gently, pure and controlled. It wasn't just an imitation, it was a tribute. His voice carried the depth of someone twice his age. It trembled with vulnerability yet soared with strength. The audience grew still. Simon's expression shifted subtly, his skeptical smile fading into focus.
Sophia's eyes widened.
Heidi placed her hand over her heart. As Matteo reached the chorus, something magical happened. His voice cracked slightly, not from mistake, but from emotion.
And instead of weakening the performance, it made it real. The crowd erupted into cheers mid-song. Some stood up. Others wiped away tears. Simon leaned forward, elbows on the desk, completely captivated. This wasn't another impersonator. This was a young boy singing not for fame, not for applause, but for family. For survival. For hope. When Matteo hit the final note, holding it longer than anyone expected, the theater exploded. A standing ovation. Judges on their feet. The sound was deafening. Matteo stood frozen, eyes wide, unsure if what he was hearing was real. Simon was the first to speak. He paused, searching for words, a rare moment. Matteo. I've heard thousands of people sing Elvis songs. Thousands. But I have never felt it the way I felt it just now. The audience roared again. You didn't just sing, Simon continued. You made us believe. Tears streamed down Matteo's face. Sophia told him he had the voice of an angel. Heidi called him a star. And then Simon did something no one expected. He reached forward and pressed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti rained down like a dream made visible. Matteo collapsed to his knees, sobbing. The crowd chanted his name. Back in the Philippines, an entire village screamed with joy around a single television screen. But the story didn't end there. With fame came pressure. Social media buzzed with both praise and criticism. Some called him the next Elvis. Others said he was just a child copying a legend. The expectations were heavy. During rehearsals for the next round, Matteo struggled. His voice cracked from exhaustion. Doubt crept in. What if the first audition had been luck? One night, alone in his hotel room, he called his father. The connection was weak, but his father's voice was steady. You don't have to be Elvis, his father said. Just be Matteo. Those words changed everything. For the semifinals, Matteo chose a different Elvis song, but he arranged it his own way. Slower. Softer at the beginning. Building into a powerful climax that showcased not imitation, but identity. When he returned to the AGT stage, he wasn't trying to shock Simon anymore. He wasn't trying to impress America. He was singing his truth. And once again, the audience felt it. Week after week, Matteo advanced. Each performance told a story of sacrifice, of resilience, of a boy who refused to let poverty define him. Even Simon admitted in an interview that Matteo had reminded him why he loved discovering talent in the first place. On the night of the finals, standing under the brightest lights yet, Matteo looked out at thousands of faces and smiled. He dedicated his final song to every kid who dreams in a small house with big hope. Whether he won the grand prize or not almost didn't matter anymore. He had already achieved something greater. He had proven that talent knows no borders. That dreams don't require wealth. That a fisherman's son from a tiny Filipino village could stand on one of the world's biggest stages and move millions. As the final applause thundered through the theater, Simon stood again, clapping slowly, sincerely. Not as a judge, but as a fan. And here's the part that truly matters. Somewhere right now, there's another kid singing to the ocean, or to a mirror, or to a small audience that barely notices. Matteo's story is proof that you never know who is listening, or when your moment will come. If this story moved you even a little, imagine what sharing it could do for someone who needs hope today. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and be part of a community that believes in second chances, hidden talent, and impossible dreams. Because sometimes, all it takes is one song to change everything. The audience thought they had seen it all. The judges thought they had heard it all. And Simon Cowell was absolutely certain he knew exactly what was about to happen. But within 2 minutes, his expression would change from polite curiosity to total disbelief. Stay with this story until the very last second, because what happens at the end isn't just surprising, it's the kind of moment that restores your faith in dreams.
And if stories like this inspire you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another unforgettable journey. In a quiet barangay just outside Cebu in the Philippines, 14-year-old Daniel Reyes spent his evenings singing beside a small sari-sari store owned by his aunt. The store had a faded Pepsi sign, a flickering fluorescent light, and a cracked plastic chair that served as Daniel's stage.
Customers would stop mid-conversation when he sang. Jeepneys passing by would slow down.
Even the stray dogs seemed to settle when his voice carried into the warm night air.
Daniel's life wasn't glamorous. His father worked construction when work was available.
His mother sold homemade snacks to neighbors.
Some weeks were better than others. Some weeks weren't.
But inside their modest home, there was one treasure, a second-hand DVD player and a collection of old performance clips of Elvis Presley.
Daniel first discovered Elvis when he was 8 years old.
He didn't understand why the man in the shiny suit moved the way he did or why the crowd screamed so loudly, but he understood the power in his voice.
It wasn't just singing. It was storytelling.
It was pain and passion woven into melody. Daniel practiced every night after homework, trying to match the depth, the vibrato, the smooth control. But unlike most kids his age, Daniel didn't dream loudly. He sang quietly when others were asleep.
He worried about money. He worried about being laughed at.
Elvis, classmates would tease.
That's old music. Sometimes he pretended it didn't bother him. Sometimes it did. One afternoon, a tourist visiting the neighborhood heard Daniel singing Love Me Tender outside the sari-sari store.
She recorded a short video on her phone and posted it online. The caption read, "This boy from the Philippines sings Elvis better than anyone I've heard." Within days, the video spread like wildfire.
Comments flooded in from America. "Get him on America's Got Talent. Simon needs to hear this."
The idea seemed impossible. Daniel had never even left his island. But a local radio station picked up the story, and soon after, the AGT producers reached out.
When Daniel received the invitation to audition for America's Got Talent, he thought it was a prank. He reread the email 5 times.
His hands shook as he told his parents. His mother cried. His father stared at the ceiling for a long moment before quietly saying, "If this is your chance, we take it." The community once again stepped in.
A fundraising concert was organized in the town plaza. Daniel sang Elvis songs under strings of borrowed lights. People who barely had enough themselves donated what they could. It wasn't just about sending a boy to America, it was about sending hope. The flight to Los Angeles was Daniel's first time on an airplane.
He pressed his forehead to the window as clouds passed beneath him like soft mountains.
He whispered to himself, "Don't mess this up." Backstage at AGT, reality hit hard.
Contestants with vocal coaches warmed up with flawless scales.
Dancers stretched in designer outfits. Magicians rehearsed elaborate tricks.
Daniel wore a simple black blazer his uncle had tailored and a white shirt tucked carefully into pressed trousers. His hair was styled in a subtle Elvis-inspired pompadour. When his name was called, his heart pounded so hard it felt like it might burst.
The stage lights of America's Got Talent were blinding. The audience stretched into darkness.
At the judges' table sat Simon Cowell, alongside Howie Mandel, Sofia Vergara, and Heidi Klum.
Simon looked at Daniel with mild curiosity. "Hello. What's your name?"
"Daniel Reyes, sir."
"And where are you from?"
"The Philippines."
The audience applauded warmly. Simon nodded. "And what are you going to sing?" "An Elvis Presley song."
There it was, the slight tightening of Simon's smile. He had heard countless Elvis tributes before.
Some good. Many forgettable.
"Okay," Simon said carefully.
"Whenever you're ready."
The music began, "If I Can Dream."
For a split second, Daniel's throat felt dry. The theater was too big. The moment was too heavy.
He thought of his mother packing rice into his bag for the journey. He thought of his father saying, "Sing like you're at home." Then he closed his eyes.
The first line came out soft. Controlled. Almost fragile. By the second line, the fragility transformed into richness. His voice carried a tone far beyond his years, deep, emotional, resonant. The audience shifted in their seats. Simon's head tilted slightly. When Daniel reached the chorus, something electric filled the room. He didn't mimic Elvis's movements. He stood still, letting his voice do the work. The power built slowly, intentionally. Each word sounded personal, as if he wasn't covering a legend, but speaking his own truth. Sophia's mouth opened in shock. Heidi blinked back tears. Howie leaned forward, whispering, "Wow." Simon's expression changed completely. The skepticism vanished. In its place was something rare, genuine amazement. As Daniel belted the final high note, holding it with strength and clarity, the audience exploded into a standing ovation before the music even ended. Daniel opened his eyes to thunderous applause. For a second, he looked confused, as if he had stepped into someone else's dream. Simon took a deep breath before speaking. "Daniel. I honestly didn't expect that." The crowd laughed lightly. "I've heard so many people try to sing Elvis. Most of them copy. You didn't copy. You made it current. You made it relevant. And most importantly, you made us feel something." The applause swelled again. Howie called it one of the best vocal auditions of the season. Sophia said his voice gave her chills. Heidi told him he was born to be on that stage. Then came the moment. Simon looked at Daniel for a long second. "You know what," he said quietly. "I think this deserves something special." He slammed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti burst into the air. Daniel covered his face as tears streamed down. The sound of the crowd chanting his name echoed across the theater. Back home, in a small living room in Cebu, neighbors screamed and hugged each other as confetti fell on their television screen. But success wasn't instant comfort. After the audition aired, Daniel faced enormous pressure. Interviews. Rehearsals. Expectations. Critics online comparing him to the real Elvis. The weight of representing his country. During rehearsals for the semifinals, he lost his voice slightly from stress. Panic set in. "What if I can't do it again?" he asked his vocal coach. That night, his father sent him a voice message. "Anik," he said gently, "you already made us proud the moment you stepped on that stage. Everything else is bonus." Daniel listened to that message before every performance. For the semifinals, he chose a different arrangement, blending a classic Elvis melody with subtle Filipino musical influences. Soft guitar. Emotional pauses. A quiet beginning that built into a powerful ending. When he finished, the entire theater stood again. He advanced to the finals. On the final night of America's Got Talent, Daniel stood under the brightest lights yet. He looked at Simon not as a judge, but as someone who once doubted and then believed. He dedicated his final performance to every child who dreams in a small house but sees a big world. Win or lose, he had already broken barriers. He had shown that talent from a small island could shake a massive stage. That old songs could feel new again. That belief travels faster than doubt. And when Simon stood to applaud him one last time, there was no skepticism left, only respect. Somewhere tonight, another child is singing outside a tiny store, wondering if anyone will ever hear them. Daniel's story proves that sometimes, the world is listening, even when you think it isn't. If this story touched your heart, don't scroll away. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that dreams don't depend on where you start, but on how brave you are to chase them. Because the next voice that shocks the world might be closer than you think, the audience was ready to be entertained. The judges were ready to critique. And Simon Cowell was ready to press his red buzzer if things went wrong. After all, how many times had he heard someone say they were going to sing Elvis Presley? Too many to count. But what happened that night on America's Got Talent would leave him frozen in silence, no smirk, no sarcasm, just pure shock.
And trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end of this story, because the final moment isn't just about music, it's about destiny. If you believe dreams can come true against all odds, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable stories. 16-year-old Raphael Mendoza grew up in a crowded neighborhood in Manila where the streets were always loud, vendors shouting, tricycles honking, children laughing. His family of 5 lived in a one-room apartment above a small repair shop. The ceiling leaked during heavy rain, and electricity sometimes cut out without warning. But in the corner of that small room stood a scratched karaoke machine, Rafi's greatest treasure. His grandfather had introduced him to Elvis when he was just 7 years old. This man, his grandfather would say, pointing at the TV screen, didn't just sing. He felt every word. Rafi didn't fully understand at first, but when he tried singing Bridge Over Tea,